Hey guys, what's up? Two-wheel turbine. Today I'm with this 2005 Honda CBR600, and believe it or not, this thing has been in the garage hiding from the channel for over a year. And I'm going to talk about, was this bike a mistake? Was it a Facebook marketplace, just impulse buy? That was a dumb mistake. We're going to talk about kind of the history of this bike, how I was involved in it, how it got to where it is today. All right, so in April of last year, I saw the listing for this bike popped up on Facebook, and it was just crazy. It was a 2005. It looked super mint. It almost looked like one of those listings where you look at it and you're like, oh, another scam listing. And because it was listed at $3,000, 2005 with like 740 miles. So I'm like, that kind of raises some red flags. Super, 20-year-old bike with under 1,000 miles and looks to be in like perfect condition, selling for the price of a Grom. But either way, I decided to message this guy, send him some messages, and then, started to kind of realize, okay, it might not be too good to be true, because the bike wasn't ridden at all. And then also he couldn't find the title for the bike. So I was like, well, that kind of sucks. Even though there were a couple like red flags or things wrong with it, I decided to say, hey, what's your address? I'll head over there right now. And I jumped in the truck with my girlfriend and headed over for like the 50-minute drive over to where the bike was supposed to be located. Super late at night by that point. It was already dark out, so that's always sketchy with Facebook deals. But met the guy at his house, and then lo and behold, he opens up the garage and there's this bike covered in dust, both tires nearly flat, just sitting in the corner, looking like it hasn't been touched for years, which ultimately it was not touched for years. When I got there, there was like no signs of life. Unfortunately the battery was dead, so I had no idea if this bike had some, electrical gremlins or had some wiring issues, or who knows even the status of the engine. So it was a bit of a gamble buying a bike that just, you have no idea what the actual condition is. It may look beautiful on the outside, but you have no idea. But either way, I decided to take a gamble and hand over $3,000 cash, and then loaded it up in the truck. I think I still have photos from when I strapped it down into the Tacoma, but here it is. There it is in the Tacoma. That's me putting it inside the house right after buying it. Luckily, when I got home, I purchased a battery the next day and fired it up, and let me see if I can get this to focus. Hope you guys can see that, but the bike had 742 miles when I installed the battery. But I did not want to try to turn it over because it sat for many years, and I knew that all the fuel inside the tank was ruined. The tank itself had a ton of rust inside of it. Even though there was a ton of rust inside the tank, I pretty much immediately started stripping the bike down like that day or the day after, and I'll throw up some pics right now. Another thing that sucked was the gas cap. It's a key lock OEM gas cap, and when they sit for a really long time, usually the tumblers get jammed. So had to, unfortunately, later down the road, we couldn't use the OEM gas cap just due to the tumbler mechanism inside being damaged. But yeah, it started to take apart the CBR, looking through these photos, and for me, tearing anything apart's like usually easy. It's always just putting it back together that sucks. So for like the next few days, I just spent tearing apart this bike down to taking the tank off, getting the fuel pump and everything like that out, and getting it ready to hopefully clean the tank and then reinstall everything and fire it up. But unfortunately, that never happened, and the bike ultimately sat back in the garage in a corner for over a year, until one day when I was like, enough of this. Let's get this bike back together, and we got to see how it runs. Just to give you guys an idea of how bad the tank was, this was the inside of the tank, just very rusted from having that old gas and then, water getting involved there and just rusting out the inside of the tank, which was really unfortunate because these tanks are kind of, harder to find in good condition since the bike's so old. I remember a few months later kind of getting the motivation and spent a little bit taking the radiator off and doing the spark plugs, which sucks on this bike because the spark plugs are kind of hidden up there at the top and the radiator's in the way. So got the spark plugs done, which was nice. A year and a half later, took the bike to my buddy with his kind of makeshift shop, and the bike was all tore down once again, kind of starting off from ground zero, and slowly built it back to where it was and got it running, but the only problem is it wasn't running quite right because there's kind of two sets of fuel injectors, and the second set of fuel injectors I can tell are still partially clogged. Up until about 11 or 12,000, the bike is fine, but in those top RPMs is where it kind of struggles. But for a while, the gas cap, we had issues, so I was riding around with microfiber in the gas cap section. Ultimately, I thought it was a pretty crazy story, just getting a 2005 CBR600 with under 1,000 miles. I think this has got to be probably one of the mintiest, cleanest CBR600s in the country, and to get it for the price of a Grom was pretty crazy. So hopefully we can get those upper rail injectors cleaned, and then also it has the original tires, so riding on that's pretty sketchy. So just a couple things, and hopefully we'll see this bike more on the channel, get to do some 0 to 60 timing, maybe 0 to 100, and comparing it to my KTM. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about this bike down below, and if you guys have found any pretty crazy deals on some super sport motorcycles on Facebook Marketplace. Feel free to tell me your story down below. Always love to check that out. Be on the lookout for more videos. Going to be trying to post more often. See you guys.